That one. Oh my god, I didn't think this through. There's a camera over my face. There's a whole Twitch chat over my face. I'm gonna get started building this keyboard, explaining what's going on here. So, I'm gonna start by describing everything that's in front of me right now. This is my PCB, for the people that know me. This is what I had to put in rice a few weeks ago because some tea got on it and it was dead. This is the, like, what's the word I'm looking for? The technology, the computer-y part of the keyboard, right? This is what registers the key presses. This is the, like, the software processy piece, okay? Everything else is just kind of a physical piece that you press. This is the plate. It goes on top of the PCB when it's in the case, and it mounts the switches. It's so the switches don't really jiggle and they stay where they need to be. On that note, this is the case. It's kind of hard to see because it's black and my lighting's subpar. But this is the case. This is what everything sits in. The PCB, the plate, everything slides on into here. These are my switches. These are Helios V2 switches. They are a linear switch. Linear switches, that just basically means when you press it down, it goes straight down. There's no extra bump or clickiness. So they are among the fastest switches to register your key press when you actually press it. And then I have my keycaps here. These are a really cool set of keycaps from the Key Company. They're not sponsoring this video, but that's where I got these keycaps from. It's a super limited set. They only made about 250 of these. And yeah. This is a really sick set that I'm really glad I have. Are those like Cherry Silent Reds? They're by ZLPC, so they are the ZLPC equivalent of Reds. The fact that they're so silent is because these switches are actually lubed. I used Cryptox 205G, which is a fairly common keyboard lube. So they're so quiet because of the fact that they're lubed. They're quiet right now because there's no keycap pressing onto it and they're not like banging into anything. You'll see when the board's together, it'll actually sound like this. Alright, so when the board's together, it'll sound like that. It'll sound and it'll look exactly like that. So, without further ado, these are my stabilizers. These are genuine Cherry stabilizers. Don't get crappy stabilizers. I had cheap ones and they broke, and my shift key was broken, and I had to take my entire keyboard apart to replace a stabilizer. So get good stabilizers, don't get cheap stabilizers if you're building a keyboard. Please, 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 I beg you, spend the extra $5 for a good piece, for good stabilizers. Alright, so when you're building a keyboard, there are a couple tools that you definitely need, and some that are like super bougie that you just have to make your life easier, right? So there are two tools, as I was saying, that I completely recommend that you absolutely 100% need. And that is a plier, like this, nothing fancy. If you could find one even without like little ripples, you could kind of see this one has some ripples in it. That would be even better. And the reason for this is because you are 100% going to probably bend pins, which are the little old pieces. Focus. Focus. It's not gonna focus. Focus. Anyway, the little gold pins on the back here, you're 100% gonna bend these. And if you don't unbend it, then you can't use a switch. I bought like 110 switches for a 96 key build, and I think I destroyed like 3 switches, so you definitely want to be able to unbend them, because I definitely wouldn't have had enough switches if I didn't unbend the pins on some of them that were salvageable when I first built my first keyboard. Alright. The other one that you 100% need is a screwdriver. Why? Because there are screws that we are going to have to unscrew and re-screw into the case to hold everything in place. And these are both keycap pullers. You don't need these, but these are really nice to have. It just makes pulling your keycap off of your switches that much easier, less frustrating, very quick. So you just kind of go camera here as such. Ta-da. That's what it does. Super simple. Super helpful. This is just another version of the same thing. Most keycap sets that you buy will actually come with switch pullers or keycap pullers. That's why I have like 6 different ones, because every different keycap set I buy usually will come with these. If not, they cost like $2-3. Don't spend, yeah, like you'll see places trying to sell them for more, but you can get a decent one for like $2-3. Same thing with this. This is a switch puller. I bought this at Micro Center for $3. This is to pull your switches out of your PCB, as so. It does that. It makes that super simple. It's a lot harder to do when the plate's on top of it. It gets a lot more annoying to pull this out when you don't have a switch puller. So again, this is like $3. It makes your life so much easier. If you're building a board, highly recommend these. As for the extra bougie stuff, this is a switch opener. So this is really helpful if you're lubing your switches. I did lube my switches. These are already lubed, so I'm not doing that again. I'll open one just to show you what the process is like. But this, your switch opener, little paintbrush, keyboard lube, and this is super bougie. This you definitely don't need. This is just what they call a lube station. So when you take apart your switch, you have like little sections and all these little holes. You put the stem here, the spring, and this just makes it so it's really hard to lose stuff while you're lubing the key switches, but again, super unnecessary. So I'm not really going to use this at all in this build right now because it's already done. And pretty much, and I'm not going to use either one of these two things either, so we're going to get that out of my way. But I will show you just for shits and giggles what the process of opening this up is like. It's super simple. You get the bottom of the switch, you get the switch opener, you line it up, and then you just press down, and it pops right open. It can kind of yeet itself right open if you're not careful, so be careful of that. Don't lose stuff all over the floor, because I've definitely lost like bottom housings to switches and just had everything except for the bottom housing. It was really quite sad. What I like to do to get it off is just take this, my switch opener, and the little handles on the side here, and just lift it up. So if we were lubing our switches, that's what we would do to open it. You don't really need this. Again, this is like a $3, $4 part, but you can technically get under the little prongs over here with the screwdriver. Little prongs over here with the screwdriver, and just open it up that way. So I'm not going to be doing that, like I said, 5 times, so I'm going to put this on the side. And we're going to get started with actually doing this thing. Actually putting this board together. So, what I like to do first, there's a couple things you should do before you do anything. Is this already has it, but your keyboard case will come with rubber feet. Look like this. Some of them are little like strips, like horizontal strips. Make sure you put the rubber feet on the bottom of your case so that it doesn't get scratched when you're doing the building process. The next thing you want to do is you want to test your PCB. The worst thing is testing your PCB, or buying a PCB, it being dead on arrival, and building the entire board. This especially sucks if you're soldering a board. We're not soldering today. This is a hot swap PCB, a YMDK 96. So if it's dead on arrival, you build a whole board. Say you soldered your key switches onto it, and then the whole thing's put together. You have to desolder everything, take the whole board apart to RMA the PCB. That's gonna suck. So I'm just gonna plug this in real quick, and you'll see It has backlight, so this is lighting up. This PCB is not dead. And we're good to go. We have the rubber feet on, we have the PCB here, it's not dead. We're good to start. Some people like to take little pliers and go through, touch the little metal pieces here, and test that every key is working. I usually take a switch and do it because I don't have any luck with testing that these are working with pliers. So I usually just take a switch, pick it up, and go across the board like this. And go to keyboardtester.com. It's super simple, and just test that everything's working. I already know that everything works except for my F6 key because this is my board. I took it apart for this stream just to rebuild it. So I already know everything's working, so I'm not going to do that. The next thing that you would typically do is put together your stabilizers. So this is your stabilizer. Like I said earlier, this is a genuine cherry stabilizer. I just got mine clear because I just picked the clear one. The regular black ones were the same exact price, but I wanted the clear ones because I wanted something bougie because it kind of goes along with this, even though I never see either one of these when I'm actually using the board. So for the sake of instructional purposes, I'm going to take this apart and put it back together. It's super simple. These are also lubed. I would highly recommend, at the very least, lubing your stabilizers, otherwise they can sound really scratchy when the board's together. Some people like to clip them and band-aid mod them. I have no idea how to clip them, and I'm scared to like clip the wrong thing, so I've never done it. And on this particular board, I haven't band-aid modded them, which a band-aid mod is just like over here, right around here is where the stabilizer sits on the PCB. You put a little piece of a band-aid right there and it suppresses the sound when you press the key. For this particular board, I wasn't super concerned with making the board really quiet, so I didn't do it on this one. So, real quick, I'm just gonna take this apart, put it back together. Alright, so there's 3 pieces. You have the stem, the housing, and the wire. I can pick it up. Alright, those are 3 pieces. You have another stem and housing on the other side. So, on all of these, on all stabilizers, there is, this camera's not the best, you could kind of see, there is one side right here that has a little indent where it's not exactly a perfect rectangle. That is going to go towards the part of the housing that has the little space for the indent. It's on the top here. You can't really see it. So if you put it in backwards, the key won't press down when you press the stabilizer. I'll show you how to know that it's working properly. It'll basically, you'll be able to do like little floppiness like this. You could pull these up and down to know that it's in properly. When it's together, you should be able to just flop it around like this. If it's together properly, nothing will fall off. So what you do, put this together, super simple. You just take the wire, take one of the housings, put the wire into the front, and then, hard to see, you put the wire into the front, and then you just snap it on into the front. Snap it on this front part over here. Focus. It's not gonna focus, but you just snap it onto that front part right there. And then you do the same exact thing on the other side. So, the first thing that you do is get your PCB out of the case, because it's not supposed to be there, is you put the stabilizers on. Start with the big ol' spacebar one. So, pretty simple. Just line it up and push them on down, as so. being elusive right now because it hates me and it wants to embarrass me. Little does it know I've done enough stupid shit that it can't embarrass me. There we go. Alright there. I knew it went there. I knew that the whole time. So now we screw in our PCB. My screw just fell through a little tiny hole through the PCB into the case, and there's no way I'm pulling it out without unscrewing the 2 screws I put in and dumping that initial screw out. So back to square one.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
I think I said this earlier, but in case not, I'll say it again. Some people like to put foam in between the PCB and the keyboard and the case. But again, that's a sound dampening technique that I wasn't really too concerned about, so I didn't do it for this particular board. I've done it in other boards where being quiet was very important, but I haven't done it in this one. For now, let's put our plate on top here, and not backwards like I'm doing. Put your plate on top. I thought it was weird at first that it goes on top of the stabilizers, but it definitely goes on top of the stabilizers. And now, you just start putting on switches. I have a couple keys on here that I know are like problem children for getting switches into. So I typically like to start with those so that I'm not fighting getting switches onto my board after there's like so many switches already on. So for me, that's usually the bottom row, my shift key over here, and these 2 keys over here. And that's because originally my plate came a little damaged, and so I had to have somebody stronger than me unbend it using a plier so that my switches could fit in. So what I'm building here is a hot swap board, which means that I can pretty easily take these switches out, switch them out for something else, put them back in, do exactly what I'm doing for you guys, take it apart for the sake of making a video, right? Of having a bomb-ass live stream. So a hot swap board means that I don't have to solder my switches to the PCB. They just sit there, all nice, come out nice and easy. You just put more in, take more out, whenever you please, without soldering or desoldering. It's really good if you hate soldering, if you don't have the space for soldering or the equipment for it, which I have none of those. It's also really good if you're really indecisive about what kind of switches you want in your keyboard, because you can very easily switch them out, no pun intended, maybe a little bit, whenever you so choose with very minimal hassle. As soon as I'm done putting these switches on, what I'm gonna do is go back to that keyboard tester website I was telling you all about earlier to check to make sure none of the slots in your PCB are dead. Well, I'm gonna go back there in a moment as soon as all these keys are in to make sure that I didn't bend any pins, because the key switch can sit there like everything's absolutely perfect and fine, and then when you go to press it, it's not gonna work. You could have tested the switch the slot earlier, like your J key or something earlier, and it worked perfectly fine. And then you go to use your keyboard and it doesn't work. Well, I'm going now, in a moment, to the keyboard tester website so that I can check that I didn't bend any pins. Because it can, like I was saying, it can sit there perfectly fine, look great, and then not work. And that's because you probably bent one of the pins on the back of the switch when you were placing it in. It's super easy to do. I probably bend like at least 3 switches every time I put a keyboard together, but that's what we have our handy dandy pliers for. So that we can straighten the pin back out and salvage the switch. This is all back together, so I'm gonna move this on over here, open this up, drag it over here, turn this on, going to drag it down right over here so we can watch, pull this up so that I can get to where I need to go. Okay. Keyboardtester.com. I've been there a few times, so you see it pops right up. And this is the tester. We're gonna launch the tester. I'm going to make this bigger. Not that, well, proportionally bigger. I'm gonna make this full screen. And then make this a little bigger, so that y'all can see what I'm doing here. That should be good. So now, I like to do this before I put the caps on my keyboard, because then that's just one more thing I have to take off when I have to switch something, because I definitely bent a pin somewhere. So I usually like to make sure it makes a clicking sound when I do it, so that I can just kind of quickly go through and make sure that everything works without having to stare to see if it lights up. So I'm going to plug the keyboard in at this point and start going. Okay, so first victim, my 6 key isn't working. So we're going to grab our handy dandy switch puller, yoink this out, and yoink the key across my desk onto the floor. BRB, gotta find it.
The next morning.
Alright, I got the switch back. So as you can see here, maybe you can see, I 1000% bent the end of this pin here. So I'm going to grab my pliers, be ever so gentle, unbend it. Takes a moment. Whatever. Oof, this looks like fixing bent CPU pins, just a little more forgiving. Definitely, because this one switch is worth like $1. It's definitely a lot more forgiving. So let me put that back in, go back to our tester, hit 6, and we're Gucci. It works. Moving on to the rest. Here we go. Here's another pin I bent, or it's not in properly. This is our left shift key. Wouldn't shock me if I bent this pin. I definitely fucked this pin up. Definitely messed this up. See if I can get this on the camera. Let me turn this off for a moment so that I can more easily get this in the shot as I unbend it. Okay, and that is fixed. Question for Kristen. Are all the switches soldered to the board or just plugged into loose connectors? That is a great question. This is a hot swap board, so there's no soldering required. All of them just kind of sit, they are plate mounted. So they just sit in the board with what you would consider a loose connection, but I've never had a switch just randomly pop out. They're pretty sturdy in there once they're in there between the plate, the keycap, because the plate is what keeps it pretty solid in place. And yeah. So now you see we unbent the pin, our left shift key is fixed. So for a hot swap board, you don't have to solder anything. The plate's gonna hold it pretty sturdy in place. I only bent 2 pins, which is really good. It's really good for me. I usually bend like at least 3. So I only bent 2 this time, and we were able to salvage them, we were able to fix them. So now all that's left to do is put on our keycaps. What is my keycap? There we go. My keycap puller. My keycap pullers, really. So we can close out of this because we don't need the tester anymore. I'm gonna unplug the keyboard again so that I don't get random key presses while I'm putting the switches on. And we're gonna test Kristen's knowledge of where the hell these keys go. You can use divinikey.com, wasdkeyboards.com, mechanicalkeyboards.com, oneupkeyboards.com are all in the US. And then AliExpress is good, but it's in China. And then KBD Fans will have everything you ever need for a keyboard, but it's also in China. Last key, F2, and that's that. That's our board. Pull this mic down a little bit. It's gonna come in the camera, but that's okay. Oh, and now you can't see it again. Now you can see it on the other camera. And that is our keyboard. That's what it sounds like when it's all said and done. I'm gonna plug it in and have a keyboard again. Not use this on-screen keyboard. Oh, my shift key's falling off because I didn't put it on properly, probably. But that's okay. I don't know what's going on over here. The shift key is stuck. Okay. All fixed. Yeah, and that is how you build a mechanical keyboard. It's really simple once you get down to it, once you know what you're doing. It's just a matter of knowing what you're doing, spending the money on it, I guess, because it's not cheap, but it's super rewarding when you see boards like this, especially ones on. This one isn't even like that nice in terms of design, but if you go on to like mechanical keyboards subreddit and look at some of the boards there, you will never ever want to buy like a Logitech or a Razer keyboard ever again. That's it for this stream. Thank you guys for coming by, for watching this. I'll be back in a little bit just playing some video games, but I have to get my desk resituated and my life back together because I definitely moved a bunch of stuff around to make room to build this nicely. If y'all have any questions, just check them out. I may have the answer. I might not, but I might have the answer.